Well now, gather round and let me spin you a yarn that still makes my bones rattle. It's about a place that's as old and twisted as the roots of the trees surrounding it, a place called Riverview Asylum. Deep in the forests of Maine, this forsaken asylum stands as a monument to suffering and darkness, its walls bearing witness to a history that's better left forgotten. What happened there? Why does it still hold such a grip on those who dare to enter? Let me take you through a tale that will answer those questions, and perhaps leave you with more unanswered than before. Remember, dear listener, to use headphones for the full experience. The whispers of the past are best heard up close. I remember the first time I heard this story. It was a crisp autumn evening, and these four young souls were huddled around a campfire, their faces a mix of excitement and trepidation. Dylan, the de facto leader, was a man driven by a thirst for adventure. His eyes shone with an almost reckless enthusiasm, a fire that couldn't be quenched by mere tales of the unknown. Jess, his partner, was the more grounded of the two. She had a cautious nature, always looking over her shoulder, as if she could sense the weight of unseen eyes watching their every move. Then there was Mark, the joker of the group. His laughter was a balm for nerves. Yet even his humour couldn't fully mask the creeping dread that had settled over the group. Lastly, Rachel. Oh, Rachel. She was a puzzle wrapped in mystery. Her presence was quiet, almost ethereal, and there was something about her that made you think she knew more than she let on. As they spoke of their plans, I couldn't help but feel a pang of unease. Rachel's comments about Riverview Asylum were laced with an unspoken fear. It was as though she was both drawn to and repelled by the place. The others, eager and untroubled, dismissed her apprehensions as part of the thrill of exploration. Little did they know, Rachel's instincts were more accurate than they could have imagined. The journey to the asylum was as much a descent into darkness as the asylum itself. The road wound through the forest like a serpent, its path obscured by tangled undergrowth and looming trees. Dylan's driving was determined, almost obsessive, as if he was on a mission that couldn't be interrupted. The others fell into a contemplative silence, the weight of the forest pressing heavily on their shoulders. Mark's jokes faded, and Jess's nervous glances became more frequent. It was as though the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to reach the heart of its mystery. Looking back, I remember feeling a sense of foreboding. It wasn't just the chill in the air or the oppressive silence, it was the feeling that they were stepping into something beyond their understanding, something ancient and malevolent. But they were determined, driven by curiosity and a hunger for the unknown. And there it was, the asylum, like a dark sentinel standing guard over its own sordid history. The iron gate, twisted and rusted, groaned as they pushed it open. The asylum seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, as if it had been waiting for their arrival. The building stood silent, a grandiose yet crumbling testament to a time when it was alive with the screams of the damned. Rachel's reaction was peculiar. As she stood before the asylum, her eyes seemed to trace the old stone walls with a strange familiarity. It was as though she was recognizing something long buried, a part of her that was inexplicably connected to this place. The others, caught up in their excitement, missed the significance of her reaction. But for me, it was clear that Rachel was more entwined with the asylum's fate than anyone realized. The moment they stepped inside, it was as though they had crossed into a different realm. The air was thick with dust, and every step stirred up a cloud of particles that danced in the beam of their flashlights. The silence was unnerving, punctuated only by the occasional creak of the floorboards. It was a place where time had stopped, a mausoleum of forgotten memories. I could almost feel their growing anxiety as they ventured deeper. The asylum seemed to react to their presence, its walls seeming to breathe with a life of their own. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive, and it was clear that this was no ordinary place. It was a living entity feeding off their fear and curiosity. As they explored further, they stumbled upon what can only be described as the heart of the asylum's malevolence, the psychiatric ward. The room was a graveyard of old records and journals, their pages filled with the accounts of horrors too ghastly to fathom. Drawings, crude and haunting, covered the walls. They depicted scenes of suffering, madness and despair, a chilling testament to the torment that had taken place within these walls. Mark's discovery of one particular journal was a turning point. As he flipped through the pages, the sheer depravity of Dr. Caldwell's experiments became evident. The journal detailed in horrific detail the cruel and inhumane procedures that had been carried out. Each entry painted a picture of a man who was not just a doctor but a torturer, a monster who took pleasure in breaking the human spirit. Reading those accounts was like peering into the abyss. The asylum had been a place where science and cruelty intertwined, where the very essence of humanity was twisted into something unrecognizable. The more they read, the clearer it became that this was not just a building. It was a tomb of suffering, and the echoes of its past were still very much alive. The atmosphere in the asylum began to shift. Jess was the first to sense it, a sudden chill that cut through her, a whisper of movement that sent her heart racing. Her flashlight flickered wildly, casting erratic shadows on the walls. It was as if the very air around them had turned hostile, reacting to their intrusion. I could feel the tension building, as if the asylum itself was coming to life. The cold draft and the whispers were not mere tricks of the mind, but the manifestation of something far more sinister. It was as though the building was awakening, drawing energy from the fear and uncertainty of its visitors. Rachel's experience was different, more personal. She began hearing voices, soft, haunting whispers calling her name. It was a sound that seemed to resonate with something deep within her, something buried in her past. Her distress was palpable, her face growing pale as she struggled to make sense of what was happening. Seeing Rachel like that, it was clear that she was connected to the asylum in a way the others were not. The voices seemed to be reaching into her very soul, dredging up memories or perhaps even an identity she had tried to forget. It was a chilling reminder of how deeply the past can cling to us, shaping our present in ways we can't always understand. The climax of their journey led them to the old operating room, the very epicenter of Dr. Caldwell's twisted experiments. The room was a grotesque shrine to the doctor's depravity. Rusted surgical tools lay scattered about, each one a silent witness to the horrors that had been performed here. The walls were stained with the remnants of suffering, and in the corner they found another journal, its pages detailing the most gruesome aspects of Caldwell's methods. Dylan's reaction as he read the journal was one of sheer horror. The experiments described were beyond comprehension, each entry a descent further into madness. The asylum had been a place where human lives were treated as mere experiments, their pain and suffering a means to an end for a man who had lost all sense of morality. Reading those accounts was like witnessing a massacre of humanity itself. It was a profound and disturbing reminder of how easily the human soul can be corrupted. The asylum was not just a place of physical torment, but a prison for the spirit, where the boundary between sanity and madness had been utterly obliterated. As the night wore on, the tension among the group became palpable. Fear began to fracture their camaraderie, each member struggling with their own personal demons. Disturbing visions and sudden cold spots became more frequent, as though the asylum was reacting to their fear and amplifying it. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows lengthening and twisting into grotesque shapes. Watching them unravel was a haunting experience. The asylum had a way of turning their fears against them, exposing their vulnerabilities in the most terrifying ways. It was as if the building itself was feeding off their terror, growing stronger with every ounce of their fear. The final twist came when Rachel uncovered a hidden room, one that seemed to have been forgotten even by the asylum itself. Inside, she found documents and records that connected her family to the asylum's dark history. It turned out that her own ancestors had been patients here, their stories of suffering and torment written into the very fabric of the asylum's history. The realization hit her like a sledgehammer. She was not just a visitor, but a part of the asylum's tragic legacy. The voices she had heard were not just echoes from the past, but cries from those who had shared her bloodline. It was a revelation that brought the story full circle, connecting the present to the past in a way that was both profound and horrifying. As dawn approached, the group stumbled out of the asylum, their faces pale and drawn. They had faced the darkness of Riverview Asylum and emerged changed. The experience had left its mark on them, a reminder of the horrors that lie in the shadows of forgotten places. For Rachel, the asylum was not just a place of nightmares, but a key to her own haunted past. Looking back, it's clear that Riverview Asylum was more than just a building. It was a living testament to the darkness within the human soul, a place where the past and present collide in the most terrifying ways. It's a story that reminds us of the dangers of delving too deep into the unknown and of the shadows that can follow us long after we leave. If you've listened to this tale, I hope it's given you a taste of the darkness that lingers in forgotten places. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. There's more to come from the depths of my tales, and I wouldn't want you to miss a single moment of the eerie and unknown. Until next time, stay curious but cautious. And remember, some places are better left unexplored.